She heard the explosions, but instead of running for her life, she stayed put, calm and composed, to broadcast the message that shook the world. Welcome to today's program, where we have with us that messenger, that Iranian journalist and anchor Sahar Emami, to find out where that powerful message came from and how.
آنچه که ملاحظه کردید، صدایی که شنیدید، فضای غبارآلود استودیو.
Now, on the day of the explosion, you had heard warnings about potential terrorist attacks on the IRIB. Now, what made you decide to stay that day, and what happened?
You know something, I'm only used to asking my questions, not answering them, so it's kind of difficult. I've never taken any classes on anchorship and presenting. I've always told my colleagues that when the red tally light is turned on, it feels as though I'm no longer in complete control of my words. As a presenter, you know that one needs to focus and study. I too study a lot. I'm in a news environment and I'm updated with news and events that occur on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. In all these years, I've always tried to stay up to date. In regards to what happened that day, if you paid attention, I was reciting a statement. I'm talking about this for the first time. I was in the middle of reciting a statement live on the news channel, and when the first explosion happened, I didn't stop. I finished reciting the statement, as was my media responsibility as a professional, and since I understood that I should not cause concern in the hearts of my audience. I felt as though a transcendent power was guiding me through it, something beyond one's imagination. We're all soldiers of media. We're all ready to serve our duty in various situations, just like fighters in the battleground, and lead the way in the news and information arena. You know that at such times, your voice and demeanor becomes stronger. That day, I felt as though with every explosion that I heard, I was becoming stronger than before. At the time, we had been warned for our safety and accommodations were arranged. My manager was also one of the few present in the control room. The security warnings had already been issued by those in charge. At the same time, we were supposed to broadcast live with the next guest moments later. The station's manager told us that from that moment on, all of us had the choice to immediately evacuate the building, and it was not up to him to instruct us to stay. He said, "Make up your minds fast." At that moment, I imagined the story I had been told since my very childhood. The moment in which Imam Hussein creates a condition for his companions to leave him alone in Karbala and save their own lives. That story gave me the strength to say that I will stay. When the people's representative, Dr. Manan Raisi, heard this, he said, "Well, if you stay, I will also stay, as I'm a representative of the people and I should also stay by your side." Mrs. Abedini also stayed on the other side, and so did my other colleague, Mr. Sadeghi. When the program started, they handed me the statement. Since the statement was a picture of the original and not quite clear, I stumbled a couple of times. My manager told me that we'd come back to the statement moments later so that I recited perfectly. I don't remember at which point, but as I was reciting the statement, the first attack took place. I heard the first explosion, then the second, then the third, and then you saw what happened. I believe having been able to carry on like that was a result of God's mercy on me, as He's blessed me with faith, and as a result of the spiritual support and prayers of Lady Fatima, the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to whom I owe everything I have in my life. and I'm very grateful that the result was dignified.
در اوج عزت این عزت عمومی خلق شد.
So you have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. So one would think that as a mom, you would immediately rush back home when there was any danger to make sure that you could stick around to raise your kids.
من باید الگویی باشم برای بچه‌هام.
It's my duty to serve as a role model for my kids. Over the years, whenever we were at a sensitive situation, I've appeared on camera stronger than other times because I believe that my power, my resolve, and my courage should serve as a model for young women watching me. My hijab, my modesty should serve as a model for young women who are perhaps on the verge of choosing their path. I've always tried to serve as a strong mother for my children. I've never told them not to cry, but I have taught them to be strong and brave. I've taught them to stand up in the face of oppression. You're saying that as a mother at the time, I should have gone with my motherly instincts. But at the time, I told myself that I should give them a lasting lesson. If I'm not around one day, they should be able to be proud of their mother and the decisions she made at the time.
اونها باید یک روزی حتی اگر من نبودم یا بودم به مادرشون افتخار کنند به اون تصمیمی که در اون لحظه گرفت.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you wanted to do growing up and who you looked up to?
من بسیار به کارم علاقه دارم.
I very much like my job. At the time of the incident, part of what happened as a result could be attributed to my passion for my job. I was one of those who achieved her childhood dreams. I had wanted to have this job and then I got it. In the years that I was busy pursuing my career, I also got married, and with my husband's support, I was able to progress in my job despite all the events that may prevent one from success, thanks to the patience and the support of my husband and my parents. I moved from the social realm to the news realm, and I arrived at a position in which I had to serve as a constant example of a Muslim Iranian woman. I tried to always appear with power to show that a woman can be both a mother with all of her emotions and a media soldier with all of her strength. I have never placed limitations on myself. Neither my marriage nor my religion has limited me. Of course, I accept certain rules and structures. It's true that within the Islamic framework and in social interactions, I can accept certain rules, but I don't call them limitations. They have not limited me from having a career as a presenter. I was able to both be a mother and work and be socially active and travel for work while maintaining my modest cover. I've never experienced what you call a limitation. I've been able to be active and work alongside my colleagues as a woman with complete respect and dignity. I believe the women who saw this image were influenced by seeing this way of life. Women I've met from different ages and different walks of life, women from whom I've learned and to whom I've taught a thing or two as well. I'm glad that while fulfilling my role as a mother and an employee, and in the way that I cover and carry myself, I've served as a role model for many.
ظاهر من، کار من، مادر بودن من، حتی شاغل بودن در عین محترم بودن من در عرصه اجتماع برای بسیاری شد الگو.
To mainstream media, a woman like you is an example of submission, submitting to a religion, submitting to the will of your husband, submitting to the Islamic Republic of Iran that you work for. And so can you tell me where this submission leads, that at some point you are the one who's calling the shots?
من مخالف نظر شما هستم. من یک همسرم که در مواردی
I disagree. When it comes to my husband's opinion, of course, at times I simply agree with him, and at times we discuss until we reach an agreement together. At the IRIB, I work in a system where at times I tell my managers what needs to be done and they accept my suggestions. I live in a country where much of the time, much of the decisions have been made by women who discussed, insisted, and created a solution. I live and work in a country where women are very much respected, both as mothers at home and as employees at work. They can express their opinions, reach agreements, and call the shots. Also, if you study the history of Iran and its women, about which I suggest that more content is made for the international audience, you'll learn about Iranian women who spoke up in defense of the truth and for the sake of justice. That was not my voice alone. It was the voice of all Iranian women who had for long spoken up in support of the oppressed, for the people of Palestine and Lebanon, and all those who had for long been subjugated by colonizers. The voice of all dignified women throughout Iran's history and that of the world as well.
و اون قاطعیت و شجاعت صدای همه زنان آزادیخواه تاریخ کهن ایران و همه دنیا بود.
There were a lot of reactions about your coverage that day. Can you tell us about some of those reactions that stood out to you more?
من یه صفحه اینستاگرام در فضای مجازی دارم.
I have a page on Instagram, and it was interesting for me to see the feedback of my audiences. Some liked a post about my child and wrote that he should be proud of his mother. Many were Iranian expats. They may not have liked my beliefs in the past or may have disliked the way I cover, but it seemed as though what happened brought together people with different opinions and from different backgrounds, like a non-Muslim woman from abroad praising me as a Shia Iranian woman. What happened brought together all those who understood the love for one's country, even those who had felt alienated as a result of political disputes. To me, political disputes are like disputes among family members. These disputes exist in every family and makes the family members grow as individuals. But when the family is threatened by an external enemy, it's beautiful how all the members stand together. And these family members, regardless of their social and political backgrounds, left me heartwarming comments and made me feel that the strength I chose to display that day on air helped people connect with us in defense of our country and all those who fight for it.
مردم رو با ما همراه کنه در دفاع از وطن، در تقدیر از کسانی که در میدان دارن فعالیت میکنن و کار میکنن و یک عملیات غرورآفرین رو دارن انجام میدن.
Western media has generally connected the phrase Allahu Akbar or God is the greatest to terrorist attacks, but you chanted Allahu Akbar at the time where you were attacked. Can you tell us what the significance of that phrase is to you and why you use that?
در ذهن من محکومیت تجاوز بود.
To me, chanting this phrase meant condemning the violations. I wanted to tell our audience that what's happening here is a clear example of injustice. And the phrase, God is the greatest of all, to me was a condemnation of the injustice we faced. Over the years, we heard so much from our audience in different social interactions, and we don't always know how to clarify certain matters, from lesser important news to major ones. I had, for instance, heard and myself covered the news of Gaza, but I had never imagined the building I worked in would be hit. When I heard the explosions, it was as though I found the answer for all that had happened in those days for all those who, perhaps, could not really grasp the matter. I wanted to show that it's the concept of God being the greatest that empowers our fighters in the battleground, that it's the chant of innocent women and children who were violated and killed by the enemies. It's the cry of everyone, including those in media, who has been a victim of injustice. It's a call that can unite men and women, young and old. A family sent me a clip of their 2-year-old trying to imitate that scene by chanting Allahu Akbar over and over again. It brought me tears of joy to see how phrases I chanted with power because of a belief I hold had that influence. I wanted my audience to see the injustice we faced. We had never started a war. We had said time and again that we had not wanted a war, that we were people of peace, a nation of debate and diplomacy, but we were violated nevertheless. We lost 3- and 6-month-old babies. We lost pregnant women. In that Allahu Akbar, I wanted to confirm the injustice that had taken place, including to those in media who had done nothing but inform and educate people.
و اون لحظه به خبرنگاران، به همکاران و به ساختمانی که فقط خبر رسانی کرده بود در طول روزهای گذشته، فقط آگاهی رسانی کرده بود به مردم اتفاق افتاد.
As a media person, what was it about what you did that caused fear in the hearts of those who bombed you?
ما کاری نمی کردیم، ما چیزی نداریم، ما تمام تجهیزاتمون خودکار کاغذ.
We hadn't done anything wrong. We had nothing but pens and paper. Those are the only tools of our job. After the building was hit, I turned around and saw a scene that I found very moving. Right there on the shattered glass, news scripts had been scattered everywhere. Scripts for 2 p.m., 4 p.m., 8 a.m., What do we have aside from these? We have cameras that have always been used to cover the reality on the ground. We have journalists who have always tried to reflect the reality. We don't have much but the papers and monitors and equipment to write and edit. My colleagues have broadcasted various images in the last few days. Notes from a journalist, paper, what else was there? Nothing. From the beginning of the Zionist aggression that is from the dawn of June 13, 2025, we started a special coverage in which we'd discuss and analyze the different aspects of the events. Of course, we reflected the power of Iran. The True Promise operation, which was reflected in the world media more and more by the hour. What was happening was the reflection of the dignity of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the power of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the strength of its soldiers in the media as well.
انعکاس قدرت جمهوری اسلامی ایران در میدان بود. انعکاس صلابت حتی سربازان رسانه‌ای بود.
There are various international organizations that are charged with human rights, women's rights, journalist rights. Now, as an Iranian woman who actually went through that experience, have you seen any reaction, any condemnation from those international organizations in the last few days?
من سوالتون رو یه ذره میبرم عقب‌تر برای پاسخ.
Let's look at your question in terms of these words: women, children, and human rights. How much of the violation of their rights was reflected in Gaza, in Lebanon, and in many countries that were victims of violation and injustice? Have any of these violations and attacks been truly condemned? And if there were condemnations, have they really been effective? I used to always ask the guests at our programs a question like what you asked. I'd ask why international organizations and conventions charged with protecting human rights and having taken on that mission are silent in the face of violations of these rights. And once they speak up, why do they only condemn and no practical steps are taken to stop the aggression? I want to say that which was supposed to be done and was overlooked not only in our case, but it's always been overlooked across the world. These simple and passing condemnations have always been there.
من میخوام بگم که آنچه که اتفاق افتاد که نیفتاد نه برای ما بود، برای حقیقت در جهان این اتفاق همیشگی است، این سکوت همیشگی است، این محکومیت‌های ساده و گذرا همیشگی است.
So as you said, Sahar Emami doesn't believe that the secret to actually resistance against oppression is negotiations with the U.S. or, appealing to international organizations. So what does Sahar Emami tell people? What would Sahar Emami tell people the secret to resistance is?
اتحاد، وحدت، همبستگی، کنار هم قرار گرفتن.
Unity, forming alliances, solidarity. If you have a small circle, it can be broken, but together these circles can form a chain to stop injustice. Together we can stop any and all injustice and oppression. There has been some improvements. In the past few years that I've been following international work, I've seen the improvements in how nations have been awakened, whose regimes were terrified of their awakening and they had spent large sums of money to create a generation that would never stand on our side, on the side of the people of Gaza, on the side of Iran's ideals. But despite all their efforts, there were very positive developments. Despite all of these crimes and violations of human rights, we witnessed movements in the heart of America. We witnessed how in the UN, which in many cases was completely silent about the crimes in Gaza, the Zionist regime was called a child-killing regime. We saw that the International Court of Justice condemned the Israeli regime and issued an international verdict for them. These are positive developments. Countries that we didn't expect stood with their nations as they could no longer resist their pressure. And some nations and their leaders stood together for values that belong to the world. Those entities can no longer repeat their heinous deeds. It's true that they have their own supporters, but even those supporters, in my opinion, as someone who's studying international affairs, secretly believe that their end is near because they cannot resist in the face of this awakening, the second wave of which we're witnessing. We had already witnessed protests in the heart of the UK, widespread protests. What brought them about? In Germany, France, in the heart of America, university protests in the US. What caused this? The same events continued until in a new wave, more solidarity was shown. Across the world, the flag of the Islamic Republic was waved even in many European countries, a flag which those people had never waved before. So what made this happen for them to stand with us? I believe it was seeing these violations. Nothing can hide the truth. Nothing can silence the voice of truth. If at a time it does, the truth will later prevail louder and stronger than before. Because in the end, victory is with the truth, and with the countries that don't stand for violation and transgression and oppression.
چون حقیقت پیروز شدنیه، چون حق پیروز شدنی هست. و همه کشورهایی که در این عرصه و در این حوزه صدایی هستند، خودشون نه اهل تجاوز هستند، نه اهل نقض حقوقی هستند و نه میتوانند صدایی رو خاموش کنند.
And thank you very much for sharing with us your message of resistance. And we very much enjoyed sharing this account with you. Stay mindful and spread the message.